Buenos dias, Gunners Collective TV. Back at it? You already know. Like a torta with some bad habits. Bye up, bye up. Let's get back to that intro. Welcome back to the channel. And if you haven't already hit that like and subscribe button, make sure you go ahead and do that. Put your notification bell on all so that way you're directed in the direction of the dope content that I stay kicking. And I appreciate the support. I'm very humbled by it. I'm back again. Baby, I'm back again. Right? We're back, man. And I got another banger for you. So, SR Loko, the up-and-coming Norteno rapper from the Bay Area, the East Bay area, San Rafael, right? Who was murdered in his front yard. Well, now 2 suspects have been arrested, and it opens a whole new can of worms, letting people know exactly what went on, why it went on, and how it went on. Well, we know how. How it went on was online beef, allegedly. I'm going to read you guys some excerpts from the exact statements put out there by law enforcement of what's going on, and we're going to break it all down. So for those of you that didn't know, SR Loko was a pretty prominent rapper up and coming in the East Bay, and he was gunned down in front of his home. And he was more of a real street dude, someone who really was out there putting in the work, allegedly, out there really in the streets like that, posing a threat. And because he posed a threat, he was targeted, allegedly. So let's get into what they said. I'm going to read it word for word, and then we'll discuss it. A targeted shooting of Travis Lee Wine, also known as Norteno rapper SR Loko, triggered an intense local manhunt and heavy speculation across the regional hip-hop community. The daylight attack and lockdown. The crime scene on Tuesday, August 4th, 2026. At approximately 10:10 a.m., multiple gunshots were reported. SR Loko was shot directly outside his apartment complex on the 400 block of Alameda de Prado in Novato, California. The neighborhood put a shelter in place. That means the officers locked the whole neighborhood down. They were looking for the suspects, the suspect or suspects. A masked gunman fled the scene on foot towards Calle Arboleda. This forced local police to issue a place in order for nearby residents while the Novato Police Department, Marin County Sheriff's Office, and California Highway Patrol searched the area. The disc videos, right? Now, this is all shit that is circulated online. People started to be private investigators and think they knew what was up, and a lot of stuff was thrown out there. If you watched my original video, I'm not into investigating for the police officers. I'm just into putting in facts, right? And saying what really happened. Excuse me, I'm a little under the weather. The disc videos. In the hours immediately preceding his death, SR Loko was active on social media, posting aggressive call-outs. The feuds. Fans and internet commentators quickly linked his death to an active rap beef. He had been posting online videos weighing in on a previous Northern California murder, trading insults and pointing fingers directly at rival Sureño gang entities. Pointing fingers. This is why you don't do that, man. On social media, if you know something went down in the streets, keep it in the streets. If you know the enemies pulled up and took care of one of your peoples, then if you're gangbanging, then there's a way to handle it. You don't go online and start speculating and telling people it was these guys or those guys, or trading insults back and forth. Hey, real G's move in silence like lasagna. Tucci, right? Isn't that how it's supposed to go? But it seemed like he was trading insults going back and forth. And this could have been one of the reasons why people pulled up. Because of this, investigators designated the shooting as a targeted gang-related hit, and where the victim and shooter were likely acquainted. Online friction versus official updates. Because of SR Loko's public online presence, the case went viral on platforms like YouTube and Instagram. This created conflict as local law enforcement explicitly warned the public about online commentators acting as proxy law enforcement. I swear I do videos on that. Stop fucking investigating for the cops. If you don't know shit, don't say shit. Look at the sticker. We're going to do that, though, one time. I'm ghetto. By floating unverified theories while detectives work through the actual physical evidence. So there was a lot of content creators that were saying, oh, it was red on red, or, oh, it was, the 18 streeters who did this, or it was a certain voter that did that. And instead of letting law enforcement work their investigation and do their thing, they hindered law enforcement from doing their thing because they were coming up with all these fucking crazy conspiracy theories. The current case. While community rumor mills debated whether the hit was blue on blue or red on red or blue on red, friction, official evidence ultimately led to the multi-state coordination and track down the primary suspects in Nevada, right? So here we go. There has been 2 people arrested in this case recently. The primary suspect, the alleged shooter in this case, is Andres Ruiz Lindo and his alleged accomplice, Christopher Lopez Chavez, both 19-year-old residents of Novato, California. According to updates from Novato Police Department and the Marin Independent Journal, details regarding their specific involvements include Andres Ruiz Lindo, age 19, identified as the primary suspect accused of the murder. Law enforcement tracked him down to Fernley, Nevada, where he was apprehended by Novato detectives and Lyon County Sheriff's investigators in a Super 8 motel parking lot. He is held on a no-bail custody awaiting extradition back to California. The other suspect, Christopher Lopez Chavez, age 19, arrested at a home on Los Robles Road in Novato near the original crime scene, just right down the street. He has been booked into the Marin County Jail and is charged with accessory after the fact. So basically, they're trying to say that he assisted his homeboy or whoever with getting out of the state. The victims and gang ties. Police records indicate that the suspects and the victim, Travis Lee Wine, SR Loko, were known to each other. The shooting is heavily investigated as a targeted event tied to local street gang rivalries. Now, 2 19-year-olds threw their life away over online beef and street gangs. Happens every day, right? What makes this out of the ordinary is the fact that all these guys knew each other and lived right down the street, meaning they could have handled their business at any time with these, but they chose to do it with the gun. Now, that shows you that words hurt. When you're making accusations, disrespecting people online, talking shit, eventually someone's going to say enough is enough and they're going to pull up. And in this case, that's exactly what happened. I don't think SR Loko thought that these guys were capable, willing, or able to pull up, but they absolutely did. And what always boggles my mind is when you have enemies, say you're from a gang, and I remember this all the time. There was a lot of red on red going on in Merced back in 2006, 7, 8. And our enemies lived right on the other side of town. These were guys that we went to school with, guys that we knew their families personally. A lot of us dated their sisters. They dated ours. Like, we grew up together. We broke bread together. We rode bikes together as young children, went into the ice cream man. Don't, the ice cream. Like, we did all that together. And then because we chose rival gang sets, or because we grew up on opposite side of the street, we now became better rivals and enemies. And we would see each other. We knew where each other laid each other's heads. We knew whose your old lady was. But see, back in these days, we were young and gang banging was just fist fights or an occasional shooting or stabbing. It started to become more, I guess, major as we got older. You know, me being incarcerated, I was learning something different. I was being educated into the Norteno plight and what it was like to have canalismo and a unity, bringing the homies together. Whereas on the streets, the bitter gang conflict was guys that were the same, wearing the same bandanas, wearing the same colors, going at it. And that was just unfortunate because I remember getting out of the youth authority and out of prison, and these guys, their education was all fucked up. Nobody was lacing them up right. So you had a lot of Norteños killing each other, hurting each other. And you had guys, excuse me, that lived in the same area, that knew each other personally doing this. Now, with SR Loko, what makes it so crazy is these guys knew where he lived. I'm sure he knew where they lived. They were just right down the street. And rather than pulling up and discussing it like men and handling your business so you guys could come back and fight another day, they let the online beef and the ridicule of people and the peer pressure get to them. And now, unfortunately, SR Loko's dead. His rap career is done. His family, I'm sure, is in mourning. Condolences to his family and his homeboys. And at the same time, you have 2 guys, 2 local gang members, young, 19 years old, that have thrown away the rest of their life over online beef and beef in rap songs. It's not that serious. And this is why I tell people, man, when you think about it, you know, was it worth it? Believe these guys are probably going to flip on each other. They're going to sit there in the county jail and they're going to be targeted by Norteños because people feel some type of way. Now, as far as the investigation, man, my voice is fucked up, huh? I'm sorry you guys have to deal with this. But I'm grinding though, huh? But as far as the investigation into red on red, this was not a red on red crime. This was rival gang factions from two rival entities going at it. Diss music and online beef did create an air of animosity amongst these guys, but this is something that's been going on in Northern California forever, for decades, half a century. And it ain't gonna stop. It won't stop until guys start acting like men and stop creating this mystique that they're better than everyone else around them. Especially when you guys grow up on the same streets, drink the same fucking water out of the same water fountains. Everybody's the same. Not everybody's built the same. Not everyone has the the capacity to kill, but everybody is the same. Now, SR Loko is going to be greatly missed in his community, I'm sure. But at the same time, there's a lot of people in his community that are probably happy he's gone. When you have someone who's inviting the devil to people's doorsteps, who's putting stuff online that he'll kill people, that he'll hurt people, that over gang colors or gangs that he's willing to crash out, then those are the people that you don't want in your community. Those are the people you could do without. So albeit there's a lot of people that liked his rap music, that liked his gang banging, that are involved in that are going to greatly miss him. There's a lot of people in the community, I'm sure, that are just like another gang member goes. Good riddance. It's unfortunate, but it's real. Now, as far as these two suspects, Andres and Christopher, these guys got a long road ahead of them. What's going to happen? Well, Andres is going to be extradited from Nevada because I'm sure he has no charges in Nevada, and he's probably already back in Marin County. He's going to be placed in the county jail where he's going to be booked on premeditated first-degree murder, I'm sure. Okay, he'll probably take a deal for a murder too and get 20 to life. As far as his crime partner, because he's only arrested on accessory after the fact, he still has get backs. If he decides to flip on Andres and tell on him, he could possibly get out pretty soon. And we'll see where he goes from there. A lot of these guys that decide, that they're going to give up the ghost and tell on their crime partners, they have to go back to their community, and they're shunned in their community. And so it's going to be a lifetime of looking over his shoulder, worrying about, when that bullet's going to catch up to him, because there's going to be people that feel some type of way about it. Now, I'm not saying he's going to tell. He might not. He might ride out to the honeycomb hideout with this boy and go do that time. But at the end of the day, what is accomplished here? One man lost his life. Two men lost their lives. It's just crazy. I wanted to bring you this update because, when people let people's lives wither away and just go, that's not a good thing. You got to keep people's memory alive. SR Loko might have been a gang member. He might have been a rapper. He might have disrespected people, but he was a son. I'm sure a father, a brother, a cousin. So there's people that really love him and they want to see his legacy continue. Not a legacy of grief and gang banging and deceit and disloyalty and death, but a legacy that he was a voice once and he was beloved, right? So we keep you updated with things like this so that way you guys know. As far as the suspect, I'm going to bring you a more in-depth synopsis on where they were from, what they were involved in. Now, from what I heard, they were representing a Southsider gang. I'm not going to tell you their exact gang that they're representing, but they were Southerners, Southsiders, not Sureños, Southsiders, from a local gang right there. And they decided for whatever reason that enough was enough. SR Loko disrespected them to the point that they had to pull up. Now, that theory of the red on red was a pretty good theory. Prior to SR Loko being unalive, he was involved in a case. He was picked up on a case where there were some discrepancies in that case, and people felt like around the community that SR Loko may or may not have told or said something to the investigators. So there was a chance that red on red could have been a plausible theory in this, but it wasn't. In this case, it was just gangbanging, internet bullshit, and of course, youngsters. This younger mentality, and I can't knock it. I can't knock it. When I was that age, man, I was feeling the same exact way. You're in your prime, 19, 20, 21, 22, in your gangbanging era. That's when you're willing to pull the trigger. That's when you're willing to go all out, crash out. You think you know it all. You think you're on the verge of being a big homie already and all these different types of things. But that's furthest from the truth. That's crash dummy time. That's the time when you're not thinking straight. You're trying to prove yourself. You're trying to prove you're the hardest in the barrio. Now these guys are not going to be able to go back to their neighborhood. They're not going to be able to represent their neighborhood to the fullest like they thought. Now they have to go suffer behind the walls of the California prison system. And best believe everything you've done prior to that point don't mean shit. You can go in there and say, yeah, I killed a Norteno. I did this and that. And they're going to be like, cool, here's a knife. Kill another one. You know what I mean? Now those same Norteños that these guys were beefing with, they're going to have to go function behind them walls under the end of hostilities together, play handball, go function on the same yard. So the whole north and south shit up north in Northern California, because it doesn't happen in Southern California based on there's no Norteños in the sur, right? But it's always flabbergasted me and tripped me out because, that north and south is like, it's basically like red on red. A lot of the dudes that are upstaters, hey, respects to them. They're with the business. They're handling their business. They're representing. I give them their respect. But at the same time, it's like you're shooting at people. You're getting at people that you grew up with, people that you knew. Let me tell you guys a little story. I've told it before, but I'm going to elaborate. I was in the youth authority. I was in Preston. For those of you that don't know, Preston was with the shits, right? And the day they told me to roll it up from Preston, no, nobody rolled me up. The cops told me time to transpack. You're being shipped to Carl Holton. They placed me on a little van with a black dude and a dude. And as soon as I got in there, I recognized him. And I was like, oh, bro, what's up? You remember me? And he was like, damn, what's up? And I was chained up and I went to the back of the van. And I'm like, where are you going? He goes, Carl Holton, I got a drug program. I said, me too. That's what's up. So we're chopping it up. And I'm asking him about his sister. I grew up with this guy. He's from my town, right? I was happy to see him. I didn't even know he was at Preston. And as we're chopping it up and doing our thing, about 10 minutes before we pull up to Stockton to Carl Holton, he says something that catches my interest. And I'm like, were you on the compa with this homeboy, with that homeboy? He's like, nah. And I'm like, damn, where the fuck were you then, bro? Right? And he's like, bro, I'm a South Sider from A-Town. That's the enemies from Atwater in Merced County, right? I was like, what the fuck? I grew up with this dude. He was a Northerner. Like, I knew him. It was at that point I knew I had to get off where I was mad at. Case in point is 5 minutes before we were homeboys talking, reminiscing, talking about school, the school lunch pizza, all that bullshit, right? We're chopping it up. 5 minutes later, we're worse enemies, and we're fighting as soon as we get off the van. That goes to show you, man, just how quick that light switch flips. All based off of nothing. Words. Because you're not where I'm from. Boo-hoo, you're not from where I'm from, right? It's craziness. It's madness. Anyways, that's our local lost his life, and 2 suspects were arrested. And again, let me reiterate and tell you their names. Now, this doesn't mean that they're guilty. They're innocent to proven guilty. We know that. But these are the guys they arrested. Andres Ruiz Lindo, age 19 of Novato, and Christopher Lopez Chavez for accessory after the fact from Novato. Again, they arrested Andres in Fernley, Nevada at a Super 8 motel parking lot. So they must have been tracking him down. I'm sure someone gave him up. He just wasn't found that easily. Usually that's how it goes. When you're on the run, that's the worst thing to be on, is the run, because the closest people to you are going to be the ones that give you up. They're tired of giving you money, dealing with you, giving you a place to stay. I could identify with it. I was on the run. It was probably the worst time in my life. You crash out while you're on the run. You figure you're getting locked up anyways. What's another crime? But time just keeps on stacking. And by the time you're locked up, you're doing all day. So these guys got a lifetime of anguish and bullshit ahead of them. And I'm sure both these individuals probably think, what the fuck happened? Why did we do that? SR Loko was gone, but he ain't never going to be forgotten. And that's just the facts. Anyways, excuse me for my voice. I'm sick, guys. I told you I really am. But we're going to keep it pushing, man. I hope you guys enjoyed the content. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Heavy's going to be the head that wears the crown. I'm going to continue to strive, struggle, pie up for what I truly believe in, and that's the betterment of all people. This video is sponsored by Barrio Liquors in Turlock, California. If you're ever in the Turlock area, make sure you pull up to Barrio Liquors, award-winning #1 liquor store in Central California. Pull up and get you something cold to drink. Also by Sticks and Stones Yard Service in Tucson, Arizona. If you live in the Tucson area and you want to estimate on some yard work, man, make sure you Google Sticks and Stones. Again, my condolences go out to the family of SR Loko, man. I'm glad that they can get some closure and that someone's off the streets, whoever did this. Again, I'm not an advocate for seeing people locked up, and I understand the streets are the streets. Gangbanging is gangbanging. This guy was not the best person. He was out there antagonizing and calling people out. And like I said, hey, you make your bed, you lay in it. When you invite the devil to your doorstep, he pulls up and pops like Curry. And that's just the truth. With that being said, I hope you guys tune in. You guys have a great day, and I appreciate all the love, man. This is the gun. Bang, bang.